Well, good evening and happy Sunday to anybody who may be listening. And boy, if it hasn't been an exciting week in the news, all sorts of things happening. But I just want to say I'm sorry to anybody who tried to do anything important on Friday with this great blue screen of death seen around the world there. Um, Very interesting thing, the fact that a single company, which manages security for so many other companies, would just on accident be able to grind everything to a halt by pushing out a bad update that manages to brick, I don't know, 30-40% of Windows workstations across the world. This whole CrowdStrike debacle. Nobody outside of the IT security space had ever heard of CrowdStrike before Friday, and now everybody in the world has heard of them. How is it? How is it that such a thing was possible? I'm not going to give you a computer technical explanation because I don't understand the computers well enough to go into the code and figure out what exactly went wrong. You can find that someplace else on YouTube. Think about to my Book of Revelation series, which you can find here on YouTube, and specifically the way the Book of Revelation handles the empires of the world, what the empires of the world do. And it's all dealing with a fundamental pattern, sometimes a problem, sometimes not a problem. The fact that every system of production is necessarily a system of control. Every system of production is necessarily a system of control. There is no way around this. There's no getting around that. So let's take a very simple, everyday system of production. Let's say that you're going to boil noodles. I think most of you could do that. I think maybe all of you who are listening could do that. It's really not that complicated. Probably something you learned how to do at the very latest in high school, right? But in order to do it properly, in order to not have it end up being a complete disaster, there's one very important thing that you have to be able to do. You have to be able to control the environment that you're cooking the noodles in. You have to make sure that it's water and the noodles getting in, and that the heat is sufficient to boil the water. You have to control what goes on inside the pot. There's no way around this. If you're going to produce something, you have to control the production of it. You don't have to control it absolutely, right? So, maybe a little bit of dust blows in from the air, just microscopic particles that you can't see. Not going to be that big of a deal. Maybe you don't get to heat it exactly as hot as you want it to. Maybe the control you have on your stove, gas, or electric, doesn't matter, isn't quite as precise as you would like. But you still do need to be able to control things in order to produce something. You also need to be able to control the amount of time that it spends in the water, on heat, all of that sort of thing. So we get to CrowdStrike. What is CrowdStrike? CrowdStrike is a IT security company. These are the people that you pay to say, hey, we'll make sure that the data stays inside your computers and that people who should not have access won't have access to it. It's not quite a system of production the same way that boiling a pot of spaghetti is, but they are producing something. They're producing security, or as most IT people will tell you, they're producing at least the illusion of security. And in order for them to be able to do that job effectively, their program doesn't run like your other surface level programs. The program doesn't run on the same level as your web browser and your email client and Steam and all your video games do. The CrowdStrike software had to be able to access what the magicians of our computers call the kernel, spelled with a K. What that is, I don't properly know. What I understand is that it goes between your operating system and the hardware. It's very low down on your, uh, it's very close to the hardware. It's not high level programming. And so, in order for this program given to you by CrowdStrike to work, it had to have a lot of control over your computer. Every system of production is also a system of control, and the more control that you have, the more production you can do, and also the more havoc you can wreak if something goes wrong. Especially with our blind machines that don't know which orders to disobey, our blind machines, which if it sees something that doesn't quite add up, just freezes up in order to protect itself against any further damage. This program that was sent out by CrowdStrike had a lot of control over everybody's PCs, everybody who had it installed. And when an error got in with that level of control, it wreaked absolute havoc. And so this is a fundamental pattern. It doesn't just happen with spaghetti noodles and computers. It happens literally everywhere. Everywhere that people do things, everywhere that we have any kind of system of production. Every time people are doing things, you need to have a certain amount of control. The balance is making sure that the control is spread out enough that the right people have the right amounts, that other people have feedback that they can give to it, and that every once in a while you've got somebody who can say, this doesn't look right. Let's send it back and see if something went wrong. Otherwise, if you've got too small a number of people with too much control, they're very likely to accidentally break something. And that can really mess people's lives up. Oh, production and control. They always come together. And hopefully the right people have the right amount of control and not too much. Dawn had a Friday medical appointment canceled. Okay, so doesn't sound like it was a necessary surgery. But yeah, it wreaked havoc on hospitals, airports, and that sort of thing. Andrew's ready to go cook the most perfect noodles right now. You're a growing boy. You should. Yeah, hospital room full of people with years of education experience, all canceled AM surgeries because the computers were down. We outsource a lot of this stuff to our tools, and then our tools don't work, and then we can't do anything. Oh, he's changed his mind. He wants to have an omelet right now. Go eat something if you're going to be hungry. No need for you to just sit here and listen to me ramble while you're hungry. It's just not right. It's just not fair. The link has been posted. I only have so much that I want to ramble about, and that I want to hear from the rest of you fine folks. So hopefully somebody can hop on in and keep me company here in Washington, D.C. Speaking of systems of production, a lot of my friends got to go to this great big Eucharistic conference in Indianapolis this summer, and that was stinking amazing looking. Speaking of amazing looking, look at Mark's nose hairs.
Hey, Father, how you doing?
Doing all right. It's just another day here in Washington, D.C. You have a good time on the beach?
I did. It's my favorite beach. It's the best beach that has ever existed or could ever exist. And it was wonderful. We went searching for sand dollars, and I found a couple. So that was good.
You're going to be rich.
I wish it worked that way.
Oh,
that
that's
was
very
an
good.
excellent explanation, by the way. It was excellent. I wanted to add, of course, if I wanted to, I could nitpick technically your entire thing. But There's no reason to, because it was actually quite correct. But I wanted to point out that the points of control that we'll say we have as the, like, CrowdStrike is something that people use, right? Obviously, um, they're not optional. You can't say, oh, we'll get rid of all the companies like CrowdStrike that have this control, this level of control, or this type of production, right? It's not an optional thing, because part of what they do, for better or for worse, and boy, do I have my issues with CrowdStrike, but what you're doing is you're outsourcing your cybersecurity to another company. And whether I agree with the reasons why that might be necessary, and maybe disagree that it is necessary at all, um, there are things that you have to outsource. Like there are things that you have to do that with. So it's not, and again, it's not that I wouldn't get rid of CrowdStrike tomorrow and replace it with something better, or replace it with nothing, because you can fix the industry so that cybersecurity wasn't a thing 10 years ago, right? So obviously you don't need it. And there's a reason why it's there. But you always need to outsource to something, right? You always need a method of production that's not entirely within your control to get things done.
Right.
And so it's more a matter of choosing carefully and having your controls in place, and just as a matter of, because I have to mention something technical, given my background. If anybody in the industry actually tested something before they, quote, released it, this wouldn't have happened for two reasons. A, CrowdStrike, had they tested their software before they released it, wouldn't have released broken software. But even if they didn't, right, and I'm a bank or whatever, and I test everything in my environment before I allow them to push it onto my machines automatically, which is more the issue here, then I would have found the bug in a test environment before it went to the production machines and brought down my airline, my bank. We actually were unable to pay a garage bill yesterday because the systems were down, right? The credit card systems weren't working. And this is not over for a lot of places. You know, some place like an airport, for example, they have so many computers sitting in ceilings that need to be rebooted for this to be fixed, and need to have keyboards and stuff plugged into them. Like, that's going to take a while. Like, that's going to take like a week, you know, to fix one airport. So had they tested it, though, none of this would have happened.
Mm-hmm.
But because nobody believes in testing before they release, you have one problem causes, to your point, I think it's 40%. And amazingly, the stock was only down 11%. But I suspect the stock's going to be down about 1,100% real soon. Because what an error. I mean, what a massive mistake. It's sort of amazing.
It is curious that they have been given the ability to just push out an update like that, and it doesn't even seem like people needed to, agree to install it.
Click
right?
the update button. Yeah.
Like the update button on Windows.
No, it's not even an update button. It's an auto. Here's the irony, though. I forget how long ago it was. We had this thing called SolarWinds, which is a similar type of a product, interestingly, that auto-updated, and that's mostly in the government. And somebody put a virus in the auto-update sequence, and nobody noticed it for over a month. And so this mistake has already been made, and it's already been noted, and yet we're still making it. We're still trusting third-party vendors to do automatic updates on important, to your point, kernel-level files or kernel-level drivers. And the worst problem, and the irony here, was the day before this happened, I had a problem with my laptop at my cousin's house. My cousin's fairly technical, too. He's way better with Windows than I am. He's a big Microsoft guy. I think Microsoft should be burned. But my laptop was rebooting, and we could not get it into safe mode. And the screens we were looking at that said, like, here's how you go into safe mode, were wrong. And my computer, which never had anything but Windows 11 installed on it from factory, did not have those screens. And none of the automatic repair tools actually did anything. It was a very strange experience. And then the next day, this happens. And I don't know how true this is because I don't do Microsoft Fieldwork anymore. I mean, if somebody wants to pay me an enormous amount of money, I'll be happy to do it because I'm better at it than most people. But I read a report that some of these machines need to be rebooted 15 times before the problem's resolved. And
Oh my
crashing a
gosh.
machine 15 times is a bit much. I know for a fact from a good friend of mine that his hospital, they had to crash the machine 3 times to get it in safe mode. Why that would be true when it wasn't true for previous versions of Windows, because you could just hit a key and go in, I don't know. But for sure, it's not like you reboot it once and go into safe mode anymore, like you used to with Windows. So I just found all that really interesting. And the bottom line is, you didn't listen to release engineers like me who said, don't release software early and often, don't release to customers, and test everything in production before you release it. Whether you develop the software or you're just pushing it into your environment. You never take an update from an outside party without testing it. You never do an update internally without testing it. You need to test stuff before you put it in production. And we're
But
just
think
not
of all
doing
the
that
money
anymore.
you lose by taking that time.
Yeah.
Money well spent. It's an investment, Emma. Think about all the money they lost. Think
I
about
know.
just the chaos,
Yeah, but
right?
It's
it just built
short-term
up.
thinking. It's all
Right.
going to be
It-
fine as long as nothing goes wrong.
Right. And most of this is just because they want software engineers to be super convenient and
Mm-hmm.
not bothered. But the bottom line is, if you want to secure your computer, that slows down your software engineering efforts. And your
Mm-hmm.
software engineers are going to be unhappy because they have to account for all this stuff. And it's like, okay, but like if you make it too easy for them, they're going to get lazy and they're not going to know how to do the work. And that's why we have a cybersecurity industry. Cybersecurity was never an industry before. The only people who had cybersecurity were the military. And that was because they didn't build any of their own systems. None of the companies that built software needed a cybersecurity team ever. That wasn't even a thing. You know, this is a made up problem because we've made it too easy and we're trying to crank out software engineers left, right, and center. They don't know anything about security. What are they going to do? And it's a big problem.
Yeah. It almost seems like, we need to get another third party out there just to test software for people.
Just
right?
make
It's like,
another
We used to have that.
company.
We used to have QA. And they did away with QA because that gets in the way of releasing software. Like software engineers hate the QA team. I used to tell people when I consulted, I'd say, listen, quite honestly, I don't want your QA engineers and your software engineers to get along. I would just as soon have them draw swords in the hallway if they met on the way to lunch.
that sounds an
Because
awful lot like
the
component
two goals
processing,
are,
Mark.
it does, but it's actually cooperative processing. The two groups have counter goals. QA's goal is this thing because it's QA, it's quality assurance. What have we removed from the world with the meaning crisis? Quality. In favor of the software engineer's goal. Software engineer's goal is more releases, release more quickly. Quantity. And those two are at odds with one another. You can have more stuff or you can have better stuff, but you can't have both. Software engineers are told you need to do another release. You need to be able to fix bugs quickly. Release. And the QA
But they wouldn't
engineers
have to
are
fix
like,
so
you
many
need to make
bugs if they did better QA on the first release.
what right, but they
Emma,
don't see
enough
it
with your
that
common
way.
sense.
Yeah, I mean they took this
I'm a
out
woman.
of the
Isn't that my
process.
what I bring to the party?
Oh, I could get snarky, but I won't.
Goodness.
No, I mean, they took it out. They used to have all this. Like I used to be a QA engineer before not actually, no, a software engineer.
This is the downside of talking while driving.
Yep. He's between towers right now. We'll get him back here soon enough, unless there's been another error caused by a software engineer. Did your computer go down, Emma?
No, it didn't. Some of the computers at the university library went down, and we got a whole lot of emails about the fact that this happened, the fact that they were working on it. And then the next day, we got an email about the fact that if someone emails you pretending they're CrowdStrike and asking you to fill out a survey on the experience, they're lying and they want you to open a virus on your computer. So do not click the link. Because CrowdStrike doesn't email random employees of businesses that have contracted them.
No, I'm sure they're getting all the feedback they could possibly handle right now.
I'm sure.
Yeah, just absolute chaos.
Yeah. The US had it better because a lot of it was like already kind of figured out by the time we all woke up and went to work. It was Australia that like found out the problem.
Yeah, people come in and oh boy, the blue screen of Jeff just isn't the way it used to be. It's got like a smiley face now and a really nice font.
It's got a little frowny face, yeah.
Oh yeah, frowny face. But like back in my day, it's like you had like a really, like you knew your computer was messed up because the font was so archaic.
Mm-hmm.
The resolution was way down.
Accidentally triggering it on my family's, like our home computer that was set up in our living room. I think that happened once on that. I forget why. But I was trying to play like Minnesota Cuke in the Coke.
Yeah, well.
And I couldn't do that.
Now listen here, young lady. Windows Millennium Edition would just crash because it felt like it. Wasn't because of anything I did. It was just a really bad operating system. And, Mark assures me that Windows still crashes a lot. It just hides it now. And I think that's actually a much better experience. So,
I'll go with it.
Yeah, because it used to just be like, you'd be in the middle of something, I'd be playing Green Army Men or whatever, and the computer would just stop, and that happens less now. So
that's good. Yeah.
A pseudo-atheist is coming in saying that Microsoft peaked with Windows 7. I'm not going to sit here and disagree with him. I hear that
that's
Windows
fair.
11 is just...
Once they started pretending that they could do like a tablet OS, which like 0.1% of Microsoft users wanted, but with Windows 8, everybody got it all. It was all downhill from there.
Yeah, that was, they sure gave it a try, right? But
and then 10 was a little bit better, and then 11, I'll accept the spyware for the better user experience.
I'm very happy on 10. I haven't felt like the need to update to 11, but boy, yeah, you brought me back with Windows 8 because that was my operating system throughout seminary.
Oh yeah, that was
my little underpowered.
Let's see, junior year of high school, I bought my first computer. I worked at Dunkin' Donuts all summer so that I could save up and buy a computer because it was my senior year because seniors were allowed to have computers at my high school. Mm-hmm. So I had a little Lenovo laptop, and that served me well until about halfway through college when I, number one, got into gaming. And it couldn't do that.
Yeah.
It was not prepared for
Intel
that.
integrated graphics. Yeah.
It wasn't even like hard. It could kind of make Lego Lord of the Rings work. It could not make Hollow Knight work. So then I got like an HP like normal.
Oh, that's bad. Hollow Knight's like a PlayStation level graphics and physics calculations.
Yeah, because it was like this big.
Oofta.
And it was one of those that you can like fold the screen all the way back and the keyboard and turn it into like a fake tablet, which I used, 0 times. And then it started messing things up because I dropped it and I cracked the touch screen. So I had to go into the like OS and disable the touch screen so it stopped spazzing out from the crack.
Mhm. That's just a part of the college experience nowadays, is having a underpowered laptop that you don't particularly care for.
Yeah,
It was like
but I mean,
I got into my parish. I started getting a little money and built a computer with my brother, and been very happy with it ever since.
nice.
But it was,
Yeah, we're
needed
probably
to have
gonna
the capital
build.
to make that happen.
Mm-hmm. We're probably gonna build a gaming computer relatively soon. Now we both have like gaming level laptops.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I bought Colin Elden Ring for
But,
his birthday.
I haven't seen him since.
Well, no, see, it's all part of my master plan because I'm never going to be good enough to play Elden Ring. I'm not good enough at video games, and I don't want to put the time and attention into becoming good enough at video games. But Colin is much better than I am, which means that I can get the full experience watching him play that I would get playing myself for a fraction of the time and frustration.
And now you understand how Twitch.tv works.
Oh yeah, I do. It's just more fun when it's someone you know.
Yes, absolutely. But it's like streamers are your friends.
Yeah, if you don't
Never mind that.
If you don't have friends, I guess you can do that. There are a couple Hollow Knight streamers that I watch, but not really on Twitch. I watch their edited versions on YouTube.
Yeah, the edited versions are usually better. Hey, check this
good.
out. I have a constitutional right to gaming PCs.
Okay.
It's right up there with your AR-15s. Yep.
Mm-hmm. It's good background noise while I'm grading homeworks.
Yeah. See, I've been thinking about taking some of. The Twitch streams are good if I want to take a nap.
Oh, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, we're lagging pretty good tonight. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why.
I'm thinking about taking some of the old hardware that I've got lying around, and building a small machine, and just trying out Linux, right? Just because I know it's out there. Is it any good? But I also don't want to lose access to, a stable operating system that I'm familiar with.
Yeah, that's fair.
So
I have a die-hard anti-Windows friend, but she also has objectively the weirdest computer problems that anyone has ever had. Every single time she took a computer to a tech, tech support on campus, they were like, "We've never seen this before, and we don't know what to do about it." So she had to become good at computers and develop opinions about it.
Huh. Interesting. She,
but Windows apparently just hates her, and she hates it back.
Yeah. Well, maybe she needs to try out Mint. Apparently, that's the easy one for baby's first Linux distro.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Anyway, how's the new house working out?
It's good.
You all moved in? You got all the walls painted?
Yeah. We were able to get all the painting done before we moved in, which was super helpful. Well, except for the nursery. The nursery is going to be a mural, and my friend is doing it.
The nursery?
Yeah. So that's, we always planned for the third bedroom to be a nursery. We weren't sure how long.
When do you expect the nursery to be in use?
Probably around Christmas time.
Okay.
But my best friend is
around
painting
Christmas
a mural.
Time. Oh, the poor thing's going to have a birthday near Christmas.
I know. We might just do half birthday, then they have to share with their grandpa instead.
Going to have all the millennial saints, or
the millennial saints? I don't know what those are.
I don't know, just What are you gonna have on the mural?
Oh, it's a Hobbit study, a Hobbit library.
Okay.
So with like a round window and then a desk and bookshelves.
That's on brand.
Yeah,
On
it
brand for
is.
you, Colin. Hillsdale graduates. You know,
surprisingly, the grandmothers have been like really resigned to this level of nerd. I was expecting more pushback from my mother and my mother-in-law on this. And they're just like, you know what? This is what we expected.
Yeah. I mean, they probably, it's like you brought Colin home for that first time, the big meeting the parents, and they're like, "He's a nice guy. He's going to do it. Going to treat our daughter just fine. We're not worried about it. Not going to, tell her not." But oh boy, those kids are going to be a bunch of nerds.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, and then we started getting into the whole like Peterson sphere stuff and talking about like the poetry conference and like other conferences. And my parents are just like, this is just going to be the nerdiest kid that like ever existed, isn't it? I'm like, yeah.
Especially if you homeschool them.
Which is a very real possibility. I haven't decided yet.
Yes,
we have a few years to work that out.
Yeah, that's a problem with the Catholic schools in a lot of places. Is they're just too expensive now that we don't have nuns that barely get paid to run them.
Yeah, Mom's always complaining about how much the diocese has to pay the Dominicans, and what they ask for a salary for the diocesan high school. Because apparently that's how that works. They pay a salary to the mother house for every Dominican.
Well, is it Nashville or Ann Arbor Dominicans?
Ann Arbor.
Ann Arbor, yeah. They're pretty high in demand, and they have the capacity to be choosy about where they go because everybody wants them.
Yeah, makes sense. And they do. They do a good job.
It's just how the economics works out.
Yep.
I do need to get on the horn with some of the Ann Arbor Dominicans, though, because I found a genuine factual error in their virtues curriculum when I was teaching that in Wapaton. The
drama.
The virtue of honesty, right? Honestia.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with your Latin skills, what is that related to?
I'm not actually sure off the top of my head.
Honor. It's related to honor.
Oh, yeah, honor. Okay. Yeah, okay. I looked right past that one because I was focused on more complicated things. Yeah.
Yeah. So the way that most people hear the word honesty in 21st century American English is we talk about telling the truth, and big fan of telling the truth. That was kind of Dr. Peterson's big thing. We were all on board with it. But when you actually read the Summa, what St. Thomas was talking about, honesty is one of the integral parts of temperance, and the virtue of temperance, it's got like something to draw you toward. It's got the carrot and the stick arrangement. The carrot is honestia, right? And what he means by that is, it's like a noble intention and aim above what you do just as an animal.
It's kind of,
and so that
I think we often use the word integrity for that sort of thing, since we've diminished honesty to just not lying.
Yeah, but it's got this sense of, I'm going to put my appetites aside because I have a genuinely human thing that I'm striving after, and I'm going to just, not be pushed around by my appetites today. And so that's the first integral part of temperance, which that virtue by which we moderate our passions, direct them towards a rational end. The second integral part is shamefacedness, right? And that's kind of like the negative part, where when your animal nature is revealed to the world, you experience shame in that because it's actually a sign of weakness. Because if we were angels and had, perfect angelic intellects, we wouldn't have that weakness in needing to like eat and stuff.
Well, and it's proper to feel shame in that which is shameful, which is something we tend to forget these days.
Right. And yes, absolutely, because we wouldn't want anybody to experience any negative emotions. That's absolutely the worst.
Definitely not.
Even salutary negative emotions. And so the things with which we share the animals most closely are also the most regulated things that we have in our society, right? So we'll take something. I'm flashing out here. Okay, we'll take something that we can speak freely out. Eating. Right? Eating is something that we share in common with the different animals. We've got all sorts of rules about eating in public. We've got all sorts of rules about, which forks and knives you use, how quickly you can eat before that becomes a problem, not getting food everywhere, having everything being, properly controlled, and just basically having good manners. All of that's a very important part of how we eat together. And it really distinguishes us from the animals, because animals don't eat like that. They just eat as quickly as they possibly can. And it's all a little bit messy when they do so. And with those other things you see that we have in common with the animals, expelling waste and reproduction, you can see we also similarly surround all that with rules. Now, to be perfectly honest with you, my StreamYard's acting funny, right?
Yeah, it is. I wonder why it's such a bad StreamYard night. That's sad.
Hello.
I don't know why StreamYard is in such a bad mood today.
It's still upset about the CrowdStrike stuff. How far did I get before I left?
You said my StreamYard's acting funny, and it cut off right in the middle of that sentence, which was just amusing.
Okay. So how far did I get in rules for social order and fame and shamefacedness?
So we have rules around all of the things that we share with the animals.
No, not again.
I think that was the end of it.
Yeah, and it's easiest to see in eating.
Yeah.
Eating is the easiest place to see that. That's the most public thing that we share with animals. Yeah, okay, all right, good. But you also see it around using the bathroom and reproductive powers. We put a lot of rules around that in order to not be too animalistic about it.
And we keep them private.
Yep. I'm blaming the shadow cabal for all this nonsense. You could just blame crumbling Washington, D.C. Architecture.
Infrastructure?
That's infrastructure. Yeah, that too.
How's DC these days?
How come the animals never sin?
Yeah, answer that question.
It's been hot. It's been very, very hot.
I'm sorry. We got a
it's,
cool wave this week, and that's been really nice. I've been appreciating that.
Yep. I got another 10 days before I fly back to North Dakota. But who's counting?
That's not that long.
No. It's only 2 months. You know, it just feels longer. That's all.
So,
But
are you making it to the Wonder Conference, or were you not able to pull that one off?
the Wonder Conference?
The Bishop Barron Conference in Minnesota.
Oh, I decided against that. I'm going to a Twins game instead.
Oh, well, that's fun.
Yeah. It was expensive. I couldn't get anybody to go with me. I don't know. How many times do I need to see Pageau before he thinks I'm stalking him? Like,
fair. Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. We're going.
Oh, you are?
We are.
Nice. Goodness. If I had known that, that might have changed the telemetry. But it'll be right after I get back from DC, and I'm not going to want to think.
I've had a lot of second thoughts about it because it was very expensive, and we decided not like impulsively, like we talked about it for a while, but we decided a little bit last minute. And then right after I bought the tickets, it was literally like 3 days after I bought the tickets, I found out that we're having a baby. And I was like, this was the worst financial decision I've ever made. But it'll be fine.
I'm never going to financially recover from this.
Pretty much. No, it'll be good, and I'm looking forward to it. And I wouldn't mind working for Word on Fire someday, and that's like a real possibility eventually someday, maybe. So early networking and such. So yeah, should be fun. We'll see. It's like a 6.5 hour drive, but
yeah, it's only the southern part of Minnesota. It's in Rochester, right?
Yeah.
Rochester's a nice town. My cousin lives there.
Nice. That's one of the most Midwest things you could have said about that.
That and another priest in the Canon Law School is a priest for the Diocese of Winona, Rochester.
Oh, nice.
And he had us all over to his place, and we smoked cigars on Friday. So.
Oh, nice. Did you watch the Bishop Barron speech at the Eucharistic
in case you
Congress?
wonder what priests do when lay people aren't around.
It's remarkably like what I know of Presbyterian ministers.
But the nice thing about a Twins game for me is that I don't have to think that much while I'm there.
No, that's fair. I'm sure it's been a busy summer with a lot of thinking.
You were going to ask if I watched something?
Oh, yeah, the Bishop Barron speech at the Eucharistic Congress.
I have not watched that.
I haven't watched it yet.
I've seen a lot of photographs of the Yeah. No, it's been I've seen a lot of photos and some of the videos of like the bigger ministerial moments. So my dad and my mom went, and my dad got to assist in distributing communion. So
yeah, we didn't go, even though that one's like right here, but they may actually pay you to attend points. You know, there's a sign in Latin.
Oh boy, I would pay StreamYard money to have things run a little bit quicker tonight.
I think it's in the White Sox stadium. Maybe it's in the Cubs. I don't know if that's the same. I don't know who it was, but someone posted a sign that says "Let's go Cubs" in Latin, and one of my professors shows it off. The myth professor shows it off every semester in his myth class. And that's the extent of my knowledge about Chicago sports.
Okay.
That's all I got. Is that story?
That's fair. That's fair. We you don't need to know everything, right? You got to outsource something.
Yeah. Sports are definitely something I outsource.
Yeah.
/ don't really care about, because it's not like I would be devastated if no one else knew that information either. Outsourcing implies that you care that someone knows it, and I'm not sure I do. I think it means like little bear. It's like Ursula. I want to say it's Ursula, but I think they used a different diminutive of bear. Because that would be really funny. Let me look this up.
Yeah, go look that up, Emma. It's important information right there. And I'll see if I can figure out what Chicago is in Latin, because the Roman Rota will write all of its sentences in Latin, and every diocese in the world has a Latin name. And some of them are kind of funny. So, Josh, what's on your mind?
No, not much. Had a pretty good weekend. Yeah, I got to visit some in-laws and whatnot, and just I just thought I'd pop in and say hi. But had a really good weekend.
It's good to see you. It's always good to see you. Always happy to see that you haven't been.
What's that?
That you haven't been taken down by. It's always boy, the lag's really bad tonight, but it's always nice to see that you haven't been taken out by a tree.
Oh no! Yeah. When it's time, it's time. I'm okay. I made that along. I made good with that a while back, but yeah, I still get scared. Don't get me wrong. I still get very scared, but get freaked out and everything like that.
That'll keep you along.
Yeah. No, like I said, there's that whole. I don't know. Sometimes I think about what it takes to kind of be brave and stuff like that, and all these things you got to kind of talk yourself into that may or may not actually exist. So, you got this. You can do it. Yeah.
Oh, it might have been. I think they used Catually. Catullus. Here.
How do you spell that?
I'm posting it in the comments.
Very good.
It means any sort of young animal, really. So it can also be like puppy. It can cover puppy, kitten, cub, any small furry creature.
What's the word?
Catullus.
Catullus.
Alrighty, I've been requested to ask you about the monastery.
Oh, yeah, we went to a monastery on our way back. So we went down to Dulce, New Mexico, to visit relatives at an event called Little Beaver. It's on a reservation on the Hickory Apache Nation reservation. And on our way back, I had encouraged us that we should wake up early and go to the monastery for Mass. However, when I nudged my beloved at 7:00 this morning, she was not in the mood to get out of the bed yet. So I went for a walk. I prayed, things like that. Drank my coffee, and just thought and things like that, and tried to be in that spirit and presence. And anyways, and then we visited the monastery. They were just now having coffee and donuts when we got there. It was Our Lady of the Desert in New Mexico, and they were just having coffee and donuts. we arrived and kind of we didn't know what to expect. And so I've never been to a monastery. I just saw this with a monastery. I'm Catholic. Seems like something you should visit if you're, traveling through the desert, and on a Sunday, nonetheless. So I go in, and we were waiting to see. We're like, can you just show up? Is that like okay? And so we started approaching, and we're like, well, I don't see any do not enter signs. And I said, I don't see any only visit at this hours. I don't see any of that. And I said, so we just kept on traveling down the dirt road, and it's kind of a bumpy dirt road, unpaved, things like this. And so I was like, and she's like, well, are they going to be offended? Or I don't want to screw up, we don't want to offend them or anything. And she said, and I was like, well, if nothing, I said, if all else fails, I got $25 in my pocket. I'll say, hey, we just wanted to offer a donation, and, God bless you, and we'll be on our way. And then, that'll be that, if we get chased off and that, but that didn't happen at all. The nun that was outside, she invited us instantly in for coffee and donuts, walked us past the sanctuary. When we walked in, and we had our baby with us, so we have a 10-month-old baby, and everybody was really excited to see her. The nuns instantly wanted to poke at her feet and everything like this, and boop, 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 boop. Sister, I forget what her name was. We're going to go back, so I'll see her again. But I got to talking with them and had a really interesting conversation. I'm an arborist. They have some tree needs. So we started talking about that. They're wanting to do some landscaping. So we talked about that. And interestingly enough, last Sunday at Mass, one of the passage readings was on Amos, and he was a dresser. And I looked up Amos because the passage said it was Amos. I can't remember. Anyways, Amos says, I'm a shepherd and dresser of sycamore trees. And so I was curious because I know what a sycamore tree is. And I was like, well, what was a dresser? And basically, as best I can tell, is it's a caretaker. So I believe he would have been involved in pruning, possibly trimming, but also harvesting the figs from the sycamore fig tree that's in Israel or Palestine, or, in that region. And anyways, and one of my things I realized is I bet this guy knew how to climb trees. And so anyways, that was a cool insight last weekend, but I was able to kind of share that a little bit. And I was also prepared to talk about sycamore trees, and which the monk, I believe he was a monk, that he had his head covered with a black hood with a red cross on the side. He was wanting to know, he said, would fig trees work in our area? I'm very curious about fig trees. And I said, our area, I said it ought to technically, because that's a sycamore tree, that they call that a sycamore tree. And I said, I don't know what relation it is to the American sycamore, but the American sycamore is you can grow that right outside right now. It'll work in this region just fine. And I said, and if that worked, then maybe, that the one, if you were able to get seeds or anything like that from there, theoretically it should work. And I said, I'll tell you what, I'll do a little research, and I'll make contact again, and we'll talk about it. And he was all excited about that. So that was just a really cool time. And everybody was interested in my work and stuff like that, and also in the baby. So we just had a great interaction, and it just felt like we were in the right place at the right time. I know we missed Mass, but it seemed like the interaction that we had was very valuable, and it was just a good time, really good time. And we bought some trinkets and, or not trinkets, I shouldn't say it, but rosaries and whatnot. And then we made our way.
So do you remember what kind of monastery, Benedictines, Capuchins?
She said they said it was an international monastery. So they had people from Africa. They had people from New York, the Americas. It seemed like this monastery they said it was 200 years old, but I don't know what happened, if it got abandoned at one point or what. She said, because the original building, she said, was scattered, and all that was left was the foundation. Basically, the timber started disappearing, and then some more of them disappeared, and then the materials and da-da-da. She said, basically, all that's left of the original monastery is the foundation. And I said, and I said, well, upon this rock, right? And she said, and she kind of, or foundation, just because the foundation was still there, and so I kind of, I thought it was funny, but I don't know. She laughed at that, but yeah, but yeah, no, and so it was. Some of the buildings weren't modern. They weren't super old or anything like that. They were more like trailers. But a lot of the relics and that seemed to be, or the the icons and things like that seemed to be old. And things like that, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure on the history of it too much.
So you're not even. Was everybody wearing the same kind of habit?
Yes, blue. No, I think somewhere in black and somewhere in blue, I believe. And there was a father there too, but he had dementia. Oh, father froze.
Yeah, he's been doing that. You said it was Our Lady of the Desert?
Our Lady of the Desert, yes. You can look it up. They do have a website.
Monastery.
Oh, one funny other story from the interaction, just real quick. It was hilarious. The father had dementia and was hard of hearing. So he throughout the entire time kept on asking my daughter's name. And so I had to repeat my daughter's name at the table very loudly, like every 5 minutes. And the sisters all agreed, nobody is ever going to forget your daughter's name.
They're Benedictines.
Benedictines. There you go. Oh, lag again.
Yeah.
Definitely a lag.
Yeah.
He might have to fast forward or something.
They have a guest house.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
Oh, that's super cool.
And
yeah,
I'm sure that was a really good story, but my internet is just dying right now.
Oh gosh. No, Emma looked up a little bit on the monastery. She said they're Benedictines, and that she was happy about guest house.
Yeah, they offer retreats too, which I always think is cool.
Yeah, we decided to go back and possibly do some work there, some volunteer work. I can help them out with some tree trimming, some stuff that might involve climbing and things like that might be a little more difficult and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I'm sure they'd appreciate that.
Oh yeah, no, I think so, and I think it'd be a good use of my time when we're traveling through that area.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was very, very cool. I'm gonna hit the chat button. If I disappear, I'm sorry. Sometimes when I've hit this button on my phone before, it's kicked me out. Let me see.
Oh yeah. Sometimes StreamYard gets a little fussy on phones.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, pseudo-Boethius. Yeah, I think that me and so actually, Father, you might be able to help me out with this. So what happened in my relationship is I met a girl, and and we started living together. And I was convinced that I was good with God and I didn't necessarily need to be married at the time. And we have a child, and then we became Catholic. And so we do want to be married. But so if I reference her as my wife, I don't mean to downplay the sacrament of marriage but I don't like calling her my partner because it makes us seem like, she could be a man or something. And so, and then I don't like, so sometimes if you just hear me reference my lady or something like that, or something, that's because I still sometimes, yeah. Fiance, I guess maybe that's the best term. But my fiance is that, but that's why I'm not married. But we are working on it. I just got to write my letter of what happened in my previous marriage and do that whole number and then get into so it's going to be a real fun time.
Yeah, good luck with all of that.
I know all about it because I'm on the other end of that process.
Ah,
gotcha. Yeah, that's the main job of a canon lawyer these days, isn't it? A lot of the time.
Gotcha.
Yeah, Colin's had to, my husband has had to deal with some of that because he works in the parish office of a church right now. So they'll get people coming through needing help, figuring out all the paperwork, or I want to get properly married in the church, but I was married before. We need to figure that out.
And like, yeah.
Recently, I want to be a godparent to my nephew, but I never properly got married.
Well, and that's like what's so terrible is like, because like, yeah, well, I get why they do the process, and I'm obviously I'm going to submit, I'm going to obey, I'll do whatever whatever is required of me. But I do think that's why we're seeing so, like, it was hard for me to get a godparent for my child, like, because we wanted to get Jaylee baptized, but we wanted to do it traditional way. And, so my family is all Protestant, and obviously my father's suicide that's here in town, he don't bend rules for nobody. And so, like, it's not like, we're gonna, get a pass on, like, oh yeah, grandma can be it. She's, Protestant, as long as she's kind of cool, So we went to visit Dulce again, and there's Chama, New Mexico, which is where Anita, my fiance, that's where her family lives, and her cousin is confirmed, and rough around the edges, possibly, but is confirmed. And when she heard we had a baby and we're looking for godmother, she says, "I'm it." And I call, and so we were like, okay, I guess it's godmother. And so, So we that was godmother. And so we did the baptism of Jaylee and my daughter from a previous marriage on this past Easter. So they both got baptized at the same time, and that it was a little bit of a kerfuffle. We got the lady that it was in charge of, like, telling us all what to do. Somehow we didn't, like, snap that we needed to come up with saints' names. And so when Father asked us when we were at the entrance, we kind of froze a little bit. And deer in the headlights, I had chosen Christopher for myself, and he looked to me first. I'm very good at acting and thinking on my feet. This was going to be my godson that I was baptizing because I'm confirmed. I was baptizing my Anita's nephews. And so I very quickly, like deer in the headlights moment, had to think on my feet. My baptism name, or my confirmation name that I chose, was Christopher. So I very quickly, nonchalantly looked down, kind of kindly at my nephew, go, Christopher. And then I was hoping my delay was going to give everybody enough time to be like, we need to think really quick and get in line. That didn't exactly happen with Anita. She kind of went, so, and then he kind of went, okay, and went to the next.
Baptism names have to be saint names?
What's that? Yeah, Christopher is.
Baptism names have to be saint names?
Oh, I don't know.
The current law is that they cannot be offensive to Christian doctrine or sensibilities.
Oh, did not know that.
So
with all of like the goofy names that women come up with nowadays, they're goofy,
what about pagan
but they're not
names?
Offensive. So, okay, Lincoln, I baptize you in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Gotcha. So yeah, obviously no blasphemous names
names, because there's a girl named Artemis and a girl named Athena at our church, and I've always low-key wondered about that. But they might have been baptized after they were named.
Greek is in the history of the church.
Yeah.
Yeah, Apollos, right? Apollos was
That's true.
the saint, an important early church leader. Dionysius was a saint.
Also,
all sorts of them had.
Yeah.
Is
there are twins named Artemis, and you would think her brother would be Apollo, but it's not. Her brother is Marius, and it drives me just a little crazy.
No, but I that kind of brings up an interesting thing that I've thought recently. It's like I've been experiencing this. You know how, like, in the early church, right now we're living in interesting times, right? I would, maybe say, I don't know. But anyways, in the early church, a lot of the new Christians were former pagans, if I'm not mistaken. And it was interesting to me that in my current world, I'm having a very hard time talking about Christ to anybody who believes in God, and talking about God to anybody who goes to as a Catholic, I can't talk about it to a Baptist, any of the Protestants, basically. My dad doesn't want to talk about it, or anything like this. But the guys that I work on a line clearance crew with all smoke entirely way too much weed and have very deep mushroom trips and have some very far out thoughts about spirituality. And I can actually talk to Christ about Christ with them. And they actually are responsive. So it's very interesting times. That's all. Waiting for the delay.
Yeah, I know. Me too. Yeah, it is weird how that's been happening. There are also just more people than there used to be that really haven't been raised with any sort of exposure.
What do you mean?
Like they weren't really, in previous generations, people were at least like they knew some of the basics of Christianity, even if they weren't like their parents weren't super into it.
Oh yeah, like the whole Dominion theory.
Everybody did.
Like the whole Tom Holland Dominion theory.
I haven't read that book.
Okay, so it basically, I'll summarize it all for you. If you live in the West, you're basically halfway brainwashed to be Christian, is what at least that's what I got out of it, is that he gave a very long history of the West and how it has basically manifested in a very, I guess, in many Westerners basically being low-key Christian, I guess, like low-key Christian, like basically your moral values, you have an orientation to good and evil, things like that, and that was given to you by a building and in a long twisted path through paganism and everything that culminates in what we call the West, which is really just something running away from the East, as far as I can tell. So anyway, hey, let's pause here and let Father catch up, because I'm sure he might want to rhyme in on something we just mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
This is just not a pleasant experience right now.
I'm sorry.
The computer condensed like 20 seconds of audio into half a second for you, Josh. It sounded like you just burped or something.
Oh, bummer. You'll have to watch it later, right? He'll be able to see it, right?
Yeah. If you go back and watch the video, then you can see what we've been saying.
There you go. Maybe we could continue it next week. Because then he can actually respond in real time and get all the parts he missed and everything.
Yeah. I mean, I won't be here next week. I will be hanging with my family.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to probably chime in and try to